In this video, we will show you how to replace your power steering pump on this Dodge Ram. This will be mounted directly along the front of your engine. Let's get into it. Okay friend, let's get started on our job. We'll make our way over to the serpentine belt tensioner. Go ahead and use a 15mm. We're going to turn this clockwise to release tension from the belt and remove the belt from the area for a quick inspection. Take note of the belt routing as you remove it. When you're inspecting the belt, you want to inspect the ribbed area. We're looking for any cracks or dry rot. And you also want to look at the backing. Make sure it's not shiny and glazed or damaged in any way. This one looks fine, so we'll set it aside. With the belt out of the way, let's make our way to the driver's side of the engine. That's where you'll find your power steering pump. On the back side of the power steering pump, you'll find that you have two lines. One of them, the lower line, pressure line, you'll be using an 18mm to loosen this fitting. Once we have this one out of the way, we'll also remove the return line right across here. For this one, we'll squeeze it with some pliers and gently pull the hose off of there and give that a quick inspection. Of course, you want to make sure you have a collection bucket under the area so you can recycle the fluid properly. I'll use an 18mm right down here. Sometimes it's a little easier to get from underneath. That's really your prerogative. Fluid should come out of here. We'll give the line a quick inspection, make sure it is still reusable. We'll set this aside. Just grab this clamp with some pliers. Can use a hose pick on this if you need to. There we are. Now we'll give the hose a quick squeeze, make sure it's soft and pliable and it's not torn, worn, or damaged. One of the good things about these rubber return lines is if you do need to trim off the end, typically you do have enough slack to be able to do so. Now we're going to start dismounting the power steering bracket from the engine. We'll start in this area right here. You can see that you have a stud that comes out of the engine block, and that's holding two wires to it. Use a 9/16 to remove the nut, then remove the wires, and we'll give those a quick inspection. Let's get the wires off of here. You want to be careful not to break the ends off. It's pretty common. A quick inspection, make sure they are reusable. Go ahead and clean them up and set them aside. With those wires out of the way, we'll loosen up this stud and we can carefully remove it. Just be careful for that coolant tube. There we are. Directly below that, you'll find another 9/16 mounting bolt. There's one right here, but we'll save that for last. Directly below it, let's get that 9/16. Just spin the fan as needed. Now it's time for our final mounting bolt. You're going to want to make sure that you're holding onto the pump and the bracket as you remove this. Remove the pump and the bracket from the engine compartment. Let's get this over to the bench. Over on the bench, let's continue on to removing the pulley from the pump shaft. To do that, you're going to want a power steering pump pulley removal tool. We'll take this and find the right attachment that has the threading that can go into the shaft of the pump. Use an 11mm or whatever size your tool is and go ahead and tighten this up. Bottom that out. Now we can take the driver. We'll bring this all the way down. Let's continue on with this. We'll take both of these cups and slide them right on over the adapter. Lock them in place. Now that we have the sleeve on there, the next thing that we'll do is hold on to the shaft area here, and we'll turn the larger nut counterclockwise. This is going to apply outward pressure, attempting to pull the pulley away from the pump. Once you have pressure on there, we'll continue on, holding this with a 13 millimeter, and we'll use a 1-inch wrench to turn this counterclockwise. As I'm turning this counterclockwise, it will be drawing the pump pulley away from the pump. Can remove our tool. Remove the pulley. Give that a quick inspection. We'll clean this up and set it aside. With the pump pulley out of the way, we'll continue on to our 4 15 millimeter headed mounting bolts that are holding the power steering pump to the bracket. Remove your bracket. And there it is, friends. On the original power steering pump, go ahead and remove the cap, give it a quick inspection, we'll set it aside. Use a flathead screwdriver to loosen this plug. We will leave it in place, but you want to make sure it's nice and loose. Now it's time to install the bracket on the brand new pump. You'll find that you had 3 of the same size bolts, and then you had 1 that was a little shorter. The bottom right-hand corner is for the shorter bolt. Once you have all of those started in by hand, go ahead and snug them up. We'll snug these up and torque them to 35 foot-pounds. Do the same to all. Now we can install our pulley. We'll take this, try to align it as straight as possible. Continue on with the installation tool. As for the installation tool, it's always a good idea to make sure you have something with a bearing on this. We're going to screw this into the center of the shaft. Put it on there as far as possible. Just use my 13 millimeter. Just to make sure. The next thing we'll do is use our 1-inch wrench to turn the nut clockwise while holding the center shaft from spinning. As you're tightening the pulley on, you want to be extremely careful for any pinch points. Okay. So right there, it got considerably tighter. That tells me that more than likely the shaft is aligned with the end of the pulley here. We're going to remove our tool so we can give it a quick inspection. We want to make sure that it is actually flush and level. If it's not, we'll just continue putting it on until it is. Oh yeah, that looks perfect. At this point, this is completely flush. We can make our way back over to the vehicle. We can start putting this in here. We'll start with the stud first, up along the top there. You want to make sure that you start with this one so you can maneuver the bracket around as needed. We'll just go ahead and snug this a little bit, but leave it loose so we can align all three others. Now we can align the bracket. We'll put in one of our longer bolts coming across here. Once again, we are going to snug this, but we do not want to tighten it. We need to be able to move the bracket around as needed. Get the one just below that. Once again, this is another longer bolt. Once you have all of these started in, you can snug them up. Once they're all snug, we'll torque them to 30 foot-pounds. As for this stud, it's pretty clear you can't get your torque wrench on there. If you have a crow's foot, you can try to use that, or just make sure it's nice and tight with your 9/16 wrench. Now we can put on our wiring. Start with the larger wire, and we'll go with the two smaller wires here. This should slide right over. Stretch. Continue on with the mounting nut, snug it up and torque that to 30 foot-pounds as well, assuming you have a crow's foot. If not, just make sure it's nice and tight. Take hold of the wires, make sure they are properly secured. These are ground wires, you don't want them loose. Now it's time to resecure our power steering lines. Let's start with the pressure line. You'll find that it has a small rubber O-ring. We're going to remove the O-ring. We'll give it a quick inspection and we can set it aside. Once you've done that, clean the line and inspect it. We're wiping where the gasket was. Inspect the flange, make sure everything is in good working order. We'll continue on with a brand new gasket. Take that gasket and slide it in place. And now we can put this into the back side of the power steering pump. To install that line, we'll remove the blue plug along the bottom here. Get this in place. Slide that in as far as possible. Start it in by hand so you're sure it's not cross-threading. And now we can snug it up. Just make sure this is nice and tight. You do not want to leak from here. This is the pressure line. Let's make our way down to the return line. We'll remove the plug. Slide that on there. Slide the clamp into place. Take hold of the hose, give it a nice tug. We're trying to remove it. Obviously we don't want to damage anything, but we do want to ensure that it will not fall off. Now we can put on our serpentine belt. As we're doing this, you want to ensure that you're putting it in the exact same routing as it had come off. Once you feel as though you have it in the proper positioning, we'll continue on back at the tensioner. We'll turn this clockwise to release tension, and then we can slide the belt over the last pulley, which is the idler pulley typically. Slides right on there. At this point, you want to double check your belt, make sure that it's sitting on all the pulleys properly. Some of the pulleys are ribbed, and if you're off by even one tooth, you're going to destroy your belt. This looks perfect. Let's get this out of here. Now we can fill up our power steering pump and system. Now when you do this, you want to ensure that you don't fill it up too much. We don't want it all the way up to the top. Now that we've added our power steering fluid to the power steering pump, we're going to get inside the passenger compartment. Start up the truck, let it run for 5 seconds, and turn it right back off. We'll make our way back out here. Triple check that belt. Once again, you want to ensure that it is sitting on each one of the pulleys properly. Assuming that looks good, go ahead and start up the vehicle, let it run, and bleed out the air in the power steering system. Now that we've run the vehicle for a little bit, we'll turn it back off, and we're going to check the fluid level. Put the cap in here. What we're looking to see is that we're up to par. I can see the full cold line here, and I'm just above it. This is perfect. Let's put the cap on here. Once you're sure that the fluid is full, continue on to cleaning your mess, double check for leaks, and then take your vehicle for a road test. Thanks for watching.
When only the best will do, demand TRQ. The only company that lets you view before you do. TRQ is committed to offering the highest quality aftermarket auto parts that are engineered for peace of mind. Thanks for using and viewing with TRQ.